Under $3,000. We have to be insane. Well, we kind of are. And yet, I found 14 different vehicles hot off the internet that you can buy today. Yes, that's right, folks. These are cars that you can actually buy for less than the average quarter at college. It's Idealist time. Hold up one sec. At this price point, you're not gonna get everything. It might have high mileage or a door ding or three, and only a few of them is what I would call exciting. But these are all cars that would serve well as a new driver, or as someone that needs a car to drive while they're saving a little bit more to buy their ideal ride. Let's start off with something that has luxury and is super underrated. From a Japanese luxury brand, believe it or not, the Infiniti i30. Honestly, I think it's one of the best choices on this list. I mean, you get a Nissan from when Nissan was actually trying to make reliable cars, and it's hiding 225 ponies under the hood thanks to the V6 stolen straight out of the 300ZX. And the real tire kicker though is that this is an Infiniti. It's nice, and you can find them for under $3,000. Can you say drift time? Yeah, that's right. This thing has right wheel drive. So have fun slideways. The only issue is that, well, you can't get one in a manual. So you could either do a manual swap or, I mean, if you really want something with 3 pedals, take my word for it, get a Civic. I believe that everyone in their life at some point should drive a manual Honda. I mean, they come in a whole bunch of different flavors, like the Del Sol and the CRX. But realistically, for $3,000, which is what our budget is today, you're gonna want a mid-90s EJ Civic. You know, the black one from the Fast and Furious, the green underglow. But because it's a Honda, you can modify it for cheap. So you can trick some people into thinking it's a Type R or a SI or, well, I mean, maybe you shouldn't. Most people know better, yet you could trick a few. Let's give you a fun fact really quick. Letty couldn't drive a stick from Fast and Furious. So her super cool racing Civic was actually an automatic EJ1DX, the slowest Civic of the era. But hey, movie magic, you know? And since you can slide into a real manual EJ for under our magic number, they're the sensible option. And I think they look pretty cool. Hey, is that a Camry? Of course, our cheap list would not be a cheap list without a Camry, which is better than riding your bike, I guess. I mean, it's an appliance in cars clothing. It will literally run forever, and it does everything it should and nothing more. Are we talking about my dishwasher right now? Anyway, for $3,000, you can have solid transportation. So, if your favorite flavor of ice cream is vanilla, this might be the ride for you. If you like to have vanilla with some sprinkles on top, this next pick is the fancy Camry, the ES300 from LEXUS. And oh baby, it's everything that I just said about the Camry, except a little bit better. It's safe, reliable, has decent gas mileage, and blends in completely with the landscape. This one, it's got wood trim, and it says Lexus instead of Toyota, which can fetch you some good points when prom night comes, you know what I'm saying? Always sort of cracks me up that since there is such a stigma against buying used luxury, the ES300 is still a Camry with just slightly better interior. So if you want style, throw the Camry out of your garage, get the ES300. If you don't want an appliance at all, and I hear ya, you want to go back to the Fast and Furious days. And we all remember the car that Vince drives. It's a Maxima, and guess what? It's your lucky day. You can get one. And if you want to snag the Maxima or any other car that we cover on this list, check out the links via Auto Tempest, link in the description, in the first comment, and browse and find your next ideal car there. I've linked to all of them down in the description. The blue car is an old Nissan under all those graphics, which is honestly a great choice. I mean, they're an absolute sleeper. It's the first sleeper we've really talked about since the Infiniti i30. There was this time when Nissan was trying to actually be something. And the best news? Well, in 2001, it was before they had that truly terrible CVT transmission, so they can pretty much run forever. Oh, and another Fast and Furious fun fact, the blue Maxima was one of the few other quote-unquote real tuner cars in the film, since it was owned by the same guy that had the yellow turned orange Supra hero car, Craig Lieberman. Now, maybe you need a little bit more space. That's where the Maxima falls a little short. Well, have you ever thought about being a minivan dude or dudette? Yeah, Kia Sedona minivan could suit your needs. And I get it. Yeah. I mean, ew, a van, but also a perfect candidate for this bumper sticker. Who wouldn't want to rock this? I used to be cool. I love vans. I've owned one almost my whole life. I currently have one that I sleep in. It's free rent, and guess what? You could have free rent with your Kia as well. But if you'd rather have a sleeper than a car that you can sleep in, well then the Swedish Volvo S70 is gonna give you a run for the money. And unlike a lot of cars in our last sleeper video, you can definitely afford this one. No, it's not gonna be as fast as the S70R, but it looks pretty much the same and it's very cheap, and I think the S70 in itself is really good looking. Yes, they stopped production in 2008, but it looks more like a 2018 to me, but maybe I need some glasses. I don't know, that boxy style, it just speaks to me. And if you think I'm crazy, well, you wouldn't be the only one. But if you like the curves rather than the boxes, you could go for the slippery looking Pontiac G6. Now, it's a Pontiac V6 with 4 doors and styling that still kind of holds up. It's also one of the newest cars that you can buy for under $3K. And the reason it's so cheap is that, well, it was built by Pontiac and they were going the way of the doo-doo and no one was inspired to buy it. It's based on some very old GM tech, which is tried and true reliable. What'd you say? You're not into it? Oh, the other newer car on our list is the Ford Fusion. They are pretty reliable. I mean, it's the Camry for people who want something shinier, or it's the Pontiac G6 for people who don't want something that stands out. But at the end of the day, the Fusion is just a perfectly acceptable car, and it's really cheap, and so it's definitely a fine starter car. If you want something that will trick some people into thinking that you have a lot of money, well, you get a Hyundai Sonata. Yes, a Hyundai. It rhymes with Sunday, which is a really good way to eat your ice cream. Believe it or not, folks, it gets good gas mileage and it's surprisingly comfortable. And it looks like an old Mercedes E-Class from not that long ago, even though it was 20 years ago. So if you want to change the badges, you can fool pretty much everybody except me, because I'll know that you're driving a Hyundai. The only thing with these older Korean cars is you want to check the oil because, well, they weren't as reliable as they are today, or back then as a Honda. But they do last and they come in at a very sweet price point. If instead you want to hop the pond and get some American iron, you gotta get a Buick Century. You probably think that I was dropped on my head as a kid, and I definitely was. But that's not saying that I'm saying that the Century isn't what you should buy. Well, you should, because the Century is a very surprisingly easy to drive V6, and it has near Cadillac levels of comfort. And as long as you do basic maintenance, you have a car that will last a very, very, very long time. And this one that I found for you for under $3,000 is honestly a steal of a deal. But you know what? I've actually seen them for a lot less. And let's keep this hoopty moving down the road. And let's talk about another Lexus, which falls into one of my top 3 favorite cheap budget cars ever. It's got a V8, it's got rear wheel drive, and it has that Lexus badge. You know what I'm talking about? It's the Lexus SC400, and no, it is not practical. And in fact, it's really only a car that someone should buy if they want a project, because if it's cheap, well then it's not gonna be minty. But the Civic is good, but not as good as a V8 platform that's pretty much based on the Supra platform. I mean, I'm telling you, you could do a lot worse, even for twice the price. The only issue, and seriously you want to watch for this, some of these old Lexuses or Lexi, they're pretty much worthless unless you fix them up. On the other side of practicality is yet another Toyota. And Toyotas are, well, kind of the best cheap appliances that you can drive. But this one is a little different because it's wearing a Pontiac badge and it's called the Vibe. And believe it or not, it's a fun, fast little hatch that's based on the Corolla. Don't worry about getting the fast one though, because, well, it's really not that fast and people want a lot of money for them. So just instead get the base model and have fun hooning at 11/10. Seriously, this car is more fun to drive than a Camry because, well, it's a hatchback and can be absolutely beat on forever because they are simply indestructible. I mean, what more could you possibly want out of a vehicle for under $3,000? Something that has all the same properties but is worthy of taking riding to the autocross on the weekends? Well, rev up your engines because this is the best vehicle on this entry, and it's the one that you're going to want the most. And honestly, I think the Celica is the best answer for most of you watching this. Sure, it is wrong wheel drive, but it's indestructible. And best of all, not only is it cheap AF to buy, but parts are still available and very inexpensive. If you're looking for a super cheap daily that can go around corners and have some fun, look no further. Just pick up a Celica. And here's a couple manuals that I found for like nothing. And that's our Idealist. Personally, I would pick the CIVIC or the Celica, but probably the CIVIC just because that generation has so much meaning to me from the Fast and Furious franchise. But if I were actually to buy a vehicle that I'd want to have fun in, that's cheap, Celica all the way. Let us know down in the comments below. I can tell you over there, yes, you want the SC400, that V8 platform with the LEXUS, but everybody else, give me the sensible choice. Let me know down below. Also, my name's Brad, this is Ideal. Subscribe, turn on that notification bell. And if you enjoyed this video, you are going to love this Ideal video. It's an Idealist. Go buy your ideal car and promise me one thing, keep living the ideal lifestyle.